Alrighty, let's get started here. Good morning / good afternoon. My name is Zane Velji. I'm the campaign director for Vote Housing. I am so excited that we have so many folks joining us today as we launch the Vote Housing campaign. This has been a long time coming in some ways, as our internal team of partners have been planning this over the last several months. So really do appreciate you being here. Several of you, as endorsers and supporters of this campaign leading up to today. It's been really, really exciting to see so many of you. I'm just going to do some basic housekeeping, just let folks know where everything is. French interpretation simultaneous is available on this webinar. So if you look at the bottom of your Zoom taskbar, you'll see that little globe. If you click on that, we've got our simultaneous interpretation by Olivier. So he's going to be there to help you along with that as well. We also have French slides of today's deck available as well. My colleague Steph is just going to throw that into the chat function, so you have a link to that if you need the French slides. Q&A for today's webinar is turned off. We're going to be here for a good time, not a long time, so to speak, so 30 minutes in and out. But feel free to jump into the chat, introduce each other, talk to each other, tell us where you're from. We'd love to know where you are. That does not mean you can't ask us questions, by the way, not at all. What we wanted to do today is just to give you a download of what brought us here and why we're here. But please feel free to reach out to us. Our social media channels are open to be reached out at info@votehousing.ca. Send us a note there as well. And then my final housekeeping item is restrooms are located wherever they are in your house. I like to say that one. No one ever laughs. No one ever laughs at that one. Okay, let me do some quick introductions around the table, and then I'll hand it off to our host for today. We're joined by some incredible organizations. Vote Housing, the campaign that launched today, is a coalition building exercise. It is a coalition of a few organizations that have come together with an explicit purpose to end homelessness and housing need forever. We want to ensure that this is not a one and done situation, that no political party or future government can put housing as a secondary or tertiary item, that it is up front and center. And that is our objective in this campaign. And you'll hear a lot more about the objectives from others, so I won't go deeper into that. But bringing us into the fold, we've got the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness, the Canadian Lived Experience Leadership Network, the Co-op Housing Federation, as well as the Canadian Housing and Renewal Association as well, alongside some special help in Quebec with our friends at FICHEM as well. So maybe I'll introduce our folks that we have that you'll be hearing from today on the call. The first individual is Margaret Foe. You'll be hearing from Margaret, who's kind of guiding you through today's proceedings, so to speak. CEO of the Aboriginal Housing Management Association, also board member on the Canadian Housing and Renewal Association. We got Al Wiebe from the Canadian Lived Experience Leadership Network. Al is going to speak to a couple of our slides as well. We got Stefania Seisha from the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness, also on our campaign as one of our deputy directors. Also Dallas Alderson from the Cooperative Housing Federation of Canada, also one of our deputy directors on the campaign. And last but certainly not least, Richard Uday, who's, I'm going to get his name one day. I think that was closer than most times. Richard, he's given me props. He's given me props from FICHEM, who's also quarterbacking a lot of our Quebec activities as well. So those are the lovely folks you'll hear from today. Without further ado, I'll pass it over to Margaret here.
Toyak Sitnin, thank you for that, Zane, and Toyak Sim, thank you everyone for taking the time and commitment on such an important issue as housing. I'm just going to start off by a quote that I heard from Grand Chief Doug Kelly out in my territory while he was advocating for a young fella who was battling addiction. He said to me, he just needs a safe place to rest his head before he can focus on recovery. And that is the literal truth for all aspects. Home is the panacea for everything: health, education, employment, and childcare. I also want to just take a moment to introduce myself in an extended fashion in terms of being Tsimshian, a member of the Lakwalams band in Port Simpson, and a descendant of the Gitga'at First Nation in Hartley Bay, a member of the Eagle Clan. I'm also a 60 scoop child. I was taken away literally at birth and raised in a non-Indigenous family and a non-Indigenous community, dispossessed from my sense of culture and belonging. And I raise that because it sets the foundation for understanding the challenges that urban Indigenous people face being dispossessed from their sense of belonging to their traditional communities. And that drives my passion and focus for the inclusion and belonging through a for Indigenous, by Indigenous urban housing strategy. Also, in our tradition, I'd like to acknowledge that while our offices are located on the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh traditional and unceded territories, I recognize that we're all coming from traditional and unceded territories from sea to sea, and we honor the ancestors and those that never came home from the colonial acts of violence and those nations residing in their traditional territories. This is what we are here to launch today. It is my pleasure to introduce the largest nonpartisan housing and homelessness advocacy campaign in Canada, in Canadian history, to mobilize thousands of Canadians to pledge to vote housing in the upcoming federal election that is likely going to happen before this year is out. Now we will play our first of many campaign videos.
As you stayed home, many wondered what it would be like to survive another night, another week, another season. 1.7 million in core housing need. 235,000 homeless any given year. But a better future exists with us. You see, policy and politicians helped create homelessness and the housing need we face today. And what politicians helped create, we will change. Working together, organizing together, voting together, we become undeniable. Using our voice, time, and vote to change something that affects each and every one of us, having a place to call home. Vote Housing is a movement to take the common pain of housing need and homelessness and turn it into a common purpose. Whether you're in Toronto or Tofino, Montreal or Moncton, or anywhere in between, we will use our everyday voices, organizing and pledging to vote housing, and show all political parties that we want a country that solves homelessness and housing need forever. A country that doesn't delay or dither any longer, but a country where no one is forgotten, no one is left behind. This election, housing will not be an afterthought. It will not just be a nice to have. This election, housing will be on the ballot. It's our time. Are you in? Join us today. Visit votehousing.ca.
I just want to talk about a little bit about this slide here. Why are we doing this? I think the better question is, why wouldn't we do this? As a person with lived experience and as a co-chair of the Canadian Lived Experience Leadership Network, we feel we need to do this. We are the truth tellers and the knowledge keepers when it comes to issues of homelessness and housing. We have been there. We know the intimate details. We have lived through homelessness. We've lived through poverty. We lived through precarious housing. And we know what it's all about. We can provide and fill in the gaps in the conversation. I'm just going to give you a little experience of mine that shows why we need to do this and why we are doing this. After spending 14 months in the Salvation Army during the second phase of my homeless life, I moved out, and I'm with my partner at that time. I was a caregiver to a person with two mental health issues, very strong schizophrenia and PTSD, and we moved out into an apartment that was unaffordable to us. We were living on welfare. We could not afford the rent, the hydro, and the water. Within 2.5 years, it was either eat or pay rents and pay bills. We ate. And within 2.5 years, we got so far behind, we got evicted. We ended up spending a number of days back on the street. Here I am, a person as a caregiver, with my friend and my caregiving, the person I was caregiving for, and 2 cats. We found ourselves in a garage, a burnt out garage, about a block away from where we used to live. Thank goodness, 2 friends of mine held a fundraising event, and they raised almost $1,000 for us. And we were able to get back into housing, pay a month's rent, pay the deposit, and get on with our lives. What happened? What would have happened if that had not happened? I believe my recovery of homelessness was put back about 2 years because of the trauma of that incident. And that was not an isolated incident. This goes across the country. Thousands of people go through this every single month, right across this country. Thousands and thousands and thousands. How tragic is it when you're finally lifted off the street, you're put into the crucible of poverty, only to find yourself back on the street again because you cannot find affordable housing or afford the housing that you're in. We have experienced homelessness, we have experienced poverty, we have experienced precarious housing. We hold that expertise. What we bring to the table as people with lived experience is the strength of will and spirit and the wisdom that we've learned from the street. And we feel, especially at this critical time in Canada's history, and we are definitely in a housing crisis beyond all dimensions previously known to us. Our voices are needed even more at this time than ever before. And so we feel that being part of the partnership of the Vote Housing campaign is a real necessary need. We'll bring that different perspective. We'll fill in the gaps. And we are so happy to be able to contribute in any way possible to this huge national scope that will bring the focus of homelessness and housing to the government and right across the country. Thank you. Margaret?
Tuxitnan, thank you, Al, for that very real background to help everybody understand why we are doing what we are doing. We certainly all know that COVID has only served to exacerbate the disparities within most of our most vulnerable populations across Canada. We know that there is an estimated 1.7 million households in core housing need, which means housing that is unaffordable, overcrowded, and or needs major repairs. And folks can't access a home that meets their needs due to this lack of supply. For the recent Recovery for All campaign, the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness commissioned NANO's research to conduct a poll, and 1.6 million Canadians experiencing homelessness and 1 in 4 renters worried about making rent next month were just some of the findings. The numbers paint a very troubling picture of Canada and really highlight the stories that Al just shared. Next slide. We were all quite excited back in 2017 when we heard the federal government was getting back into the housing game after the devolution started in the 1990s. In fact, I recall in 2018 having a conversation with Evan Siddell, the past chair of CMHC, covering off the components of the new national housing strategy. And sadly, at that moment, my filter between my thoughts and my mouth was defective. And I said to Evan, yes, very much like my colleagues, we are all so happy to see CMHC back in the game at the housing table. But I can't help but thinking, meet the new guy, same as the old guy. Poor Evan, his eyes started twitching, and I thought, you know, where is this focus on urban Indigenous communities? Sadly, here we sit in 2021 with no dedicated funding stream, despite, as former Senator Murray Sinclair and founder of the Truth and Reconciliation Committee Commission just said, having laid a pathway, which the TRC did, as CHRA has done, we laid a pathway via the For Indigenous by Indigenous submission over a year ago. And despite the HUMA report, we saw Budget 2021 recently released with a repeated ongoing failure to address urban Indigenous as a dedicated funding stream. In doing so, they are also repeating the ongoing legacy of colonial oppression and further marginalizing the already dispossessed into the urban areas. This campaign certainly aims to prioritize the glaring gap over the pending election campaigns, and we know that equity-seeking communities have been hardest hit, and we can't return to normal. Normal is 235,000 people experiencing homelessness every year. The pandemic has shown us how much worse the experiences for folks in housing need or homelessness are affected by something like the pandemic. And according to research, we won't know how bad COVID-19's impact will be even over the next 5 years. As my dear friend Leilani Farha once said to me when we were working together earlier on in the COVID pandemic, you would have thought that with the COVID-19 stay-at-home, isolate-in-place orders that you should have seen a natural end to homelessness. Yet we know, in fact, things have only gotten worse. Decampment processes across Canada have ranged from semi-healthy respect and attempts to be humane to downright inhumane treatment of our most vulnerable people. Criminalizing homelessness is not a solution. A full spectrum and supportive housing investments are needed and need to be a priority for the next sitting government. And we call on all Canadians to settle for nothing less. Thank you.
Et là, je crois que c'est mon tour. Is it right, Zane? Yes. Bonjour, Richard Audet à Montréal. Donc, très heureux de me joindre à cette campagne. Je vous dirais que quand on regarde les problématiques, on peut croire qu'il y en a beaucoup puis qu'il y en a trop, mais ce qui est encourageant cette fois-ci avec cette campagne-là, c'est qu'on a souvent travaillé ça chacun dans notre coin à travers nos communautés au Canada. Et là, il y a un grand rassemblement, puis un grand rassemblement qui permet francophones, anglophones, à tout le monde d'avoir accès à l'information et de participer. Ce sont des enjeux qu'on retrouve partout au Canada. On a des raisons de s'inquiéter, mais je pense qu'on a des raisons d'agir, puis on a des raisons d'avoir confiance parce qu'on est en train de créer une belle mobilisation. 6 enjeux qui ont déjà été abordés, mais que je vous résume qui vont être des priorités de cette campagne. Vous ne serez pas surpris d'apprendre que le logement autochtone va être une priorité du logement autochtone, une stratégie, comme en parlait Margaret, l'importance d'avoir une stratégie adaptée. Et pour les Autochtones qui vivent dans les villes, dans les communautés rurales, mais aussi dans le Nord. Donc, et bien entendu, des logements sous gouvernance des populations autochtones. On a assez vu de colonialisme, de paternalisme, mais là, on sait que ce n'est pas une solution. Juste vous dire, pour ceux qui pourraient penser que ce n'est pas un grave problème, il y a des statistiques éloquentes qui disent que dans les villes, au Canada, une personne sur 128 va connaître l'itinérance. Chez les populations autochtones, on parle d'une personne sur 15. C'est un véritable drame, d'où l'importance d'agir. L'itinérance, c'est un problème dans toutes les villes. Moi, dans mon quartier populaire d'Hochelaga-Maisonneuve à Montréal, on a eu un campement l'an dernier de plusieurs gens qui vivaient dans des tentes alors que le climat ne le permettait pas, mais qu'il n'y avait pas de place où aller, où ils avaient l'impression que où on voulait les envoyer, c'était des endroits où on ne les laissait pas libres. Donc, ces problématiques-là existent, puis il y en a, on le sait partout à travers le Canada. Un phénomène qui s'est amplifié parce qu'on a réduit nos dépenses sociales, réduit les investissements. Donc, il faut prévenir et éliminer ça avec l'idée de s'engager donc vraiment à la réalisation de cet enjeu-là. Construction de logements supervisés. On a de logements supervisés, de logements adaptés. On a donc un manque de logements si on veut réintégrer les gens dans le logement. Il faut parfois leur donner un soutien supplémentaire pour réussir à s'en sortir. Il y a un toit qui manque, parfois il va avoir un problème de santé mentale, parfois il va avoir eu toutes sortes de problèmes émotifs qui vont conduire à une situation qui pourra nécessiter un soutien. Et puis on le voit, c'est pas comme si ces offensives-là ne fonctionnaient pas. Ça marche, il faut juste le faire, il faut investir les sommes nécessaires pour y arriver. Accessibilité universelle, c'est un enjeu aussi important qu'il faut travailler. Quand on est à mobilité réduite, à titre d'exemple, qu'on doit se trouver un logement adapté, on a des problèmes d'abordabilité qui nous créent une situation difficile. Je fais vite parce qu'on a dit que ça irait vite. Des logements abordables, il y en a de grands besoins. 300 000 logements abordables sur 10 ans dans des formules OBNL coopératives, des formules qui excluent le logement du marché spéculatif, sans la financiarisation de l'économie. On fait disparaître du logement abordable. Donc, le droit au logement, puis c'est une autre de nos revendications, je les mélange, mais en fait, mon but, c'est de vous dire que je suis très emballé de travailler avec une gang à toutes ces idées-là, aussi des programmes de subvention. Vous pourrez lire. Pour nous, on est arrivé, je dirais, les derniers dans la gang, mais on a l'intention d'être très présent au cours de la prochaine campagne, de mobiliser, de participer. Voilà, je pense que ce n'est qu'un début. Voilà, c'est bon? Quiz.
Sure, so happy to jump in here from my place with the Cooperative Housing Federation of Canada. Thank you so much for that, Richard, who we work closely with at FESHIM, representing housing cooperatives in Montreal. So Richard outlined the 6 points of our policy platform. You can find those on with a little bit more detail on our website. So I really encourage everyone to check that out. But I guess I also want to just make sure that, you know, I emphasize with you today that the Vote Housing campaign is at its core really a values-based campaign. So the imperative of ending homelessness and housing need is really what's driving us. And in this way, the policy points, though important they are high level. You know, they don't go into the minutia of kind of the how and the when and the why, but they really focus on what's essential and what we want to see in election commitments. And that's really our laser focus. So maybe we can just hop to the next slide, a little bit about kind of how we'll go about tackling this goal and implementing various aspects of the campaign. So we have the platform in front of us, but really what we're going to do is use the best on the ground and digital advocacy tactics in order to mobilize as many people, as many organizations as we can, so that really we are allowed growing coalition that is on the mind of every candidate and every political party, that they will have no choice but to look at the platform, incorporate the platform, and the next federal government will be ideally using that as the basis of significant investment in housing and ending homelessness going forward. We will be looking at some key areas, but important to note, we really will have a presence across the country. So any of you, your organizations, others that you know about, you know, if you want to get involved, please let us know, work with us, and we'll be able to support you in doing that work locally. But you know, because we do have you know, resources are finite, we will trying to be focusing on some areas where we know our issues are particularly resonant, where we will have some more uptake. So I hope that's a helpful sense of our tactics and is getting you thinking about how you might be able to get involved in the campaign.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dallas. And thank you so much, Al, Richard, and Margaret. I think now we really are excited to talk about what this webinar is also about, and that is that call to action, because at the end of the day, this campaign is people powered, it's grassroots. We are these organizations coming together. We have over 80 endorser organizations who are working with us, and we're looking to grow that, and we're looking to grow how individuals can get involved as well, because because really we're going to need boots on the ground. We're going to need people on the phones. We're going to need folks just ready to push our messaging forward and push our campaign forward so that, you know, those parties are reflecting our messaging in their platforms, are aligning with us on how important it is to address housing need and homelessness in Canada. So Zane, maybe you can let folks know more specifically how they can get involved.
Yeah, absolutely, Steph. And you know, thank you everyone for who's kind of spoken and presented thus far. You know, it's the buildup here is that we've got a campaign that has got a brand and a video that we're very proud about, you know, as we launch today. With your help, many of your help to kind of amplify that, to get it out in community. But this only works if we expand the pool of people who want to get involved in this issue beyond us. That's the only way this works. That if we dig down to our networks, our friends, our family, people we know, that is the way we can actually grow momentum. Because let me be totally clear, if we kind of keep this campaign as a feel good for those that are, you know, intimately around this issue day to day, professionally or personally, I think that's great, but it's not enough. It's just not enough to get on the minds of the political parties. It's just not enough to get in the minds of the general public. So what we need to do is expand our coalition. And the way we expand our coalition is we start digging into the resources we might have, whether that be time, connections, or people in our network. So the way you can get involved to start with is by volunteering in your community. If you want to help with, you know, offline volunteering, like a political campaign, knock on doors, install lawn signs. You know, this is if you are thinking about getting involved in this upcoming election, but no party aligns with you, here's my pitch. Come help us at Vote Housing. We're nonpartisan. We have an issue that we know we want to make top of mind. But the fact that you're here, we hope that means you are also intimately engaged in this. Give us a couple hours a week. We'll use that energy, that time, that passion, either online or offline, whatever works best for you, and we'll put that to good use. So you can help in your community by door knocking, volunteering to install lawn signs, doing leaflet drops, helping us organize events. We need all of that. You can also volunteer with the comfort of your own home. This pandemic has opened up an opportunity for folks to sit at home or wherever they're comfortable and digitally organize, connect one-on-one on social media. That stuff is going to be really important, right? We only have a social media presence that is limited to us as the partner organizations and as a new Vote Housing brand. But if you start reaching out to your friends and family, that means so much more because they know you. They don't know us, but if they know you and we can help you kind of get into a position where you're more effectively reaching out to those in your network, we actually exponentially grow. So that online organizing is going to be just as important as us hitting the doors. And the final thing I'll add is regional leads. If you are, if you have a couple of hours, that's great. We'll take that. We would be tremendously grateful for that. If you feel like you want to lead on this campaign, what I will say in broad strokes, there are leadership positions available. To lead in your community, to organize your fellow community members, to help door knock, to help engage online, to help organize events, to help online engagement, whatever that looks like, we've got capacity for that too. And if your strengths are in certain directions, email us, right? info@votehousing.ca. Let us know what you want to do. Sign up on the website, votehousing.ca/volunteer. We're going to reach out to every single person that indicates that they're interested in volunteering and try to find something that suits what you're up to and what your skill sets are. But we can't do this without people power. I'll be totally frank. This is not a campaign of flash, of money, of big advertising spends. We're happy with the brand that we have. But this is not about money. This is about people. And we know that's our secret sauce here, which is why I'm laying it on thick with the ask in terms of what we're looking to do here today. So I'll kind of move it on to that next slide and hand it back over to Steph here. You're on mute there, Steph.
Of course I am. Sorry. There you go. I am just sharing in the chat where you can go and vote to pledge or pledge to vote rather. So by completing this vote pledge at votehousing.ca, the what we launched today, you'll be added to the list of people who care about these issues and want to engage in that way, that you want your voice heard on election day. We hope that you will also share this far and wide with your networks. In the chat, like I said, I've linked to the 2 pledge pages in English and en français, and we will be following up to this webinar. For everyone on the call, you'll receive all the materials we've shared today, all of the links, all of our social media, as well as the communications materials that you may have seen already on our Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, the video links, everything. And we're just really, really hoping that when you visit, at the very least, you have 5 friends or 5 folks who you think would really be interested and want to get involved with Vote Housing. Zane, back to you.
Thanks, Steph. And I'll kind of close with this about our campaign's ambition. And rather than reading what's on the slide here, let me kind of paint you a picture in terms of what I feel like might be our optimal outcome. Our core focus here, the only reason to get involved, the only reason to make these videos, the only reason to have this website and the social media accounts is singular. We need as many Canadians, many people across the country to vote housing. And the way we do that is we encourage them to sign our pledge to say, this election, whenever it happens, a lot of speculation, but whenever it happens, we will use housing as a filter in terms of how we vote. And what we then amass by having literally tens of thousands of people across this country taking that pledge is, think about the pockets of this country where we have this political power, where we can say to any political party, doesn't matter what jersey color they wear, to say, if you want to win, there's a pocket of people here that have taken our pledge to vote housing. This is a filter that they're going to look through in this election. And if you want to become government, if you want to ensure that your policies are resonating, housing can't be an afterthought. The video, I think, summarized it best, which is our goal here. It's ambitious, it's broad, but it has to be this goal, is that we have to be undeniable, which means that for no longer can this issue be relegated easily as something we'll think about because there's no political power or muscle or pressure around it. Not anymore. If we start doing that, if we start showcasing that there is real momentum around this issue, we become undeniable. And the only way our issues become undeniable is if we've got a coalition of people across the country who, just as individuals, are saying, yeah, I'm taking this pledge. So everything that we're doing here is in service of us trying to organize, mobilize, reach out, and brand a campaign that encourages our fellow, Canadians, our fellow brothers and sisters, our family members, our fellow citizens across this country to say, yeah, I'm putting my hand up and voting housing as well, because the fact is that it can no longer kind of be this afterthought. So everything that we're putting together, the digital organizing, the volunteer on the ground, is all in service of this ambition. And we're hoping that through the people power and the networks that you folks have that have taken time out of your day today to be here, that we can start growing that parade. We can start growing that groundswell that we hope is part of the outcome of this campaign. So I'll pass it over finally to Margaret to kind of close us out here.
Wonderful. Toyaksitnin, Toyaksim, everyone, thank you for everything, all of our presenters and all of you in the community. I can't help but comment on the chats that I saw, a couple of people commenting about the systems and barriers that keep our people impoverished and keep them on the fringe and of stable housing. And I can't help but say, poverty is a policy decision. And at the end of the day, if we don't drive the next new sitting government to make better decisions and implement better policies, we won't see the kind of change that we need. So I'm very thankful for this campaign and look forward to all of your support. Help get the word out there and make that pledge to vote. So Toyaksim, thanks everyone for joining us and investing your time and energy in this worthy campaign.